people do you think have a gold play button, have 1 million subscribers?
Gosh, I wouldn't have the foggiest.
If
Maybe,
you're gonna guess.
If I was going to guess, how many people have, which gold is 100,000, right? Or no, that's 1 million?
Gold is 1 million.
Gold is 1 million. Gosh, I mean, maybe 300, maybe 200?
It's less than 5,000. The number that you're throwing is closer to the people who have 10 million.
I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
So,
all right.
like, less than 500, and some of those.
And let's put this in context. How many billions of, like, how many millions of channels, right? Like out of how many?
I'm counting the channels that Social Blade considers active channels of creators.
Right.
And so I'm projecting 15 million, but if I'm going to be conservative, I would say 5 to 6 million real creators. Globally.
Still, that's
being conservative.
Right.
But if I use for math, watch what I'm going to do with this math.
Please.
Conservatively, 5 million creators, probably 15 million, and that's just the ones that Social Blade is tracking. It could be more.
It could be more.
But understand that the people at the top tier that we're talking about, Social Blade ain't missed none of them. We got that data. Like, it prioritized the top for a reason.
Right.
All right. So there are less than 500 people with 10 million subscribers, like the biggest of the big, right? 500. That's it out of all YouTube across the world. And a bunch of that, Ellen DeGeneres, you know, like Jimmy Kimmel,
Kardashian or something. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you got that. Mostly Vivo music video channels, a lot of that. And then you have a bunch of organic YouTubers. Same thing for the million. There's less than 5,000 people with 1 million. Gary Vaynerchuk still has
less than 1 million, right?
Less than 1 million. He's about almost 800,000. And he, you know, and the thing is, he still had 1 million Twitter followers when before he started the Ask Gary V show. He'd been on YouTube on the Gary Vaynerchuk channel, aside from Wine Library, for like 7 years, and had been sitting at 30,000 forever. Couldn't get any traction. Started the Ask Gary V show. Still took over a year of the Ask Gary V show to put him over 100,000. And only recently, after doing Daily V, because this time last year, Gary still hadn't hit 250,000 in YouTube yet this time.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that. I was kind of surprised, to be honest.
Daily V put him over the top. He got to 1 million in Instagram like nothing. He went big in Snapchat like nothing. He got to 1 million in Facebook like nothing. Got to 1 million in Twitter years ago, back in the Wine Library days, in the early days of Twitter. So it's like YouTube is one of the harder platforms to scale because it's a content platform rather than a social media platform. Social media is predicated on popularity. Content is predicated partly on talent. And scaling it from outside the platform isn't a guarantee. As I just pointed out, 1 million subscribers and you couldn't siphon over the years to get anywhere near 100,000. He still didn't do it. He had to do it organically. And he did it by building 2 shows. More than anything, he did it by building 2 shows and then going daily and then now going to 2-a-days. And that scaled him. But he has 16 people on his personal brand and he's scaling that to 20. And when he started that Ask Gary V show, he had 3 people on that. So, and then he built that team. So he didn't even do it solo like most YouTubers are trying to build a personal brand, which is the entire thesis of most of his career, is the thesis of crush it, right? So this is perspective. So Gary Vaynerchuk, who's been on every major news outlet, CNN, ABC, Fox, Good Morning America, 4-time best-selling author, worldwide acclaimed public speaker, has spoken on literally probably 200 stages by now, millions of followers across social media, still hasn't broken into that top echelon of YouTube just yet. And he's been on the platform since the first year of the platform, even though it's been with different channels. And so there's that. His Ask Gary V YouTube channel, which is just answers from the Ask Gary V show, which used to be branded as Entrepreneurship Answered, still hasn't gotten a silver play button. Still hasn't gotten 100,000, right? So and it's still a Gary Vaynerchuk YouTube channel, still a Gary Vaynerchuk brand. It is backing the search engine that he built on his website, the Ask Gary V search engine, so that when you pull the answers, it doesn't have to pull from his main YouTube channel. It's just the answer for just a question instead of a timestamp in a larger video that's a compilation of 5 questions. So.
And he has a large team too to help him, right, Roberto?
Like
I mean, this guy,
16,
he's not editing the videos
on his personal brand. Yeah, 16 people on his personal brand to do that, you know, because he has to run a 600 people organization all day and, you know, still go home to a family.
Thank you, Melissa.
So, and travel all the time. And I say that to say this. Producing the highest level quality of content that you could ever produce has been on the platform forever, still not at 1 million. Just to give you perspective how putting out two videos a day, he's going to get it. But still not. And he had followers, millions of followers in all the other platforms, and it still is the hardest to give you perspective. And now, granted, there are some people who get lucky, and by that I mean go viral, because I don't really believe in luck, but in the context of you can't manufacture virality unless Daryl Eves can, but you'll have to throw a lot of money at it. But if you're not Daryl Eves or at that
he's
tier,
the exception.
There's a minority of people. There's like 0.00001% of people in the online world who can manufacture virality. And Daryl knows how to do that from a business standpoint. The rainbow unicorn poop for the squatty potty. Daryl knows how to do that.
He knows how to do that.
And it takes money. But organic virality is rare. It's winning. It's the internet equivalent. Going viral is the internet's answer to winning the lottery.
Right.
Which means that you got lucky. It wasn't that your skill threshold was reliable to produce this on a regular basis. Right. Meaning that if you win the lottery, you didn't get rich by building a business. If you win the lottery, you didn't get rich by having a valued skill set.
Exactly.
You showed up and things happened for you. And okay, fine, because everyone thinks going viral is the answer. But the part of that that's interesting is that, okay, Gary's an example of someone who's been grinding to skill. You can position somewhat for virality and viral conditions by doing controversial content, being a shock jock, or counterpunching that culture by being Philip DeFranco. There's ways to do that. You could throw ridiculous production values at things and go Casey Neistat route, but that still requires you having a very specific talent and the conditions and the timing being right for that to scale, because all those creators were around forever before they went big and had breakout moments that they could reproduce over and over again. And again, it's predicated to their unique talent and skill. You can't just do what Philip DeFranco did or what Casey Neistat did and get the same results. It's not replicable.
Exactly.
Thus, it's not scalable for anyone who is not that specific individual. Thus, that's what makes them a unicorn. If your thing is unique and not scalable for anyone else, you're a unicorn. You're special, which is why, as much as I love VidCon, it's not practical because it's just a gathering of the unicorns on stage most of the time.
Right.
The industry level is where it's not that. That's where everyone is smaller and less glamorous, but has under the hood results. It's more steak than sizzle. And I'm not accusing of the other people of only being sizzle. They have steak, but it's like this prime cut thing from like a creature that you have to get a permit to go hunt. Like it's, right. It's not mass market. It's not tilapia or anything like that. So what I'm getting at is horses are generic. Unicorns. Zebras are just rare enough, but they're not unicorns. There's enough of them. They're rare, but there's enough of them for them to be special and not be a generic horse. And for you to like, oh, wow, that person's riding a zebra is really exciting. And it's like being a unicorn, riding a unicorn, that's outlandish. And that's going to happen for the far minority of people. And everyone's chasing that. No one wants to be a horse. Everyone's chasing unicorns. A lot of people are just, tying a horn to their head to fake it. All you have to do is be a zebra.
I love it.
Zebra. And so in that regard, being a zebra is very practical. Being a zebra is something you could do. You could evolve from being a horse to being a zebra. And it comes down to understanding what's unique enough about you, and then capitalizing on that and running it through a system and running it through a machine that can scale for you. And that's the difference between, aside from the few people who went viral, and by that I mean got lucky, that have these high tier things. Like no one I don't think who has a diamond play button is lucky. I honestly believe if you have 10 million subscribers.
So that's 10 million. And then what? PewDiePie got the 50 million, Ruby or whatever that was? Or is there even a Ruby?
No, I don't know if that was real. I think that might have been a parody thing.
Oh, that was a parody. Okay. I thought actually that was, I was like, whoa. Okay. Because I've seen the silver, I've seen the gold.
But they had sent him 5 diamond play buttons, I wouldn't have gotten mad. Like,
okay.
Felix. But the point I'm getting at is, and I don't want to harp on this long, there's 500 people or brands or companies that have done that.
Okay.
They not only were special and figured out a thing, to get that far, they were sustainable at that level, which is why I don't think people take into consideration is what you're trying to do sustainable.
Right.
Virality is not sustainable.
No.
And if you tried it, you will see what we are seeing happen to some people. They burn out. They destroy their lives. They destroy their relationships. They destroy reputations. They can't sustain it. They then end up in situations where they might end up in substance abuse situations, or they are in these dark spirals because there are things that are not sustainable. And like depression and suicide, it's a real thing in creativity and entrepreneurship. We just saw, one of my favorite musicians, Chester from Linkin Park, 41, hung himself.
My age.
Yeah, it's insane. Somebody so talented, so creative, someone that is self-aware and understood that they had these issues and everything like that, had 6 wonderful children, like couldn't said that like whatever life I'm living isn't sustainable. And like, unfortunately,
Chris Cornell, he wasn't that much older.
Yeah. Robin Williams.
Oh man. I pulled over. That was one of the only few that I actually pulled over. And I remember my wife being in the car. It's funny you mentioned Robin Williams because he was such an inspiration, not only as a kid with Aladdin and his other, unbelievable family kind of relevant movies, but his just creativity and his interviews. Part of the reason why my dream has always been to do this, Roberto, and why I think we're living in the greatest era of all time, because the barrier to entry is nil.
Yep.
Is that seeing people like that who inspired me, like holy mackerel.
I grew up.
Maybe I'm not a weirdo, maybe I'm not a freak. Maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe.
And even if I am, I can still win.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I mean by reconcile. Thank you. Oh, Todd Bergen's in the house. Good to see you, Todd. Todd had Roberto on his show, Divorce the Workforce. I still think, Todd, you need to go back to that, or at least revamp that, because I love that. I just love that name. Don't you, Roberto? Divorce the Workforce.
That's why I was on the show.
I think that name is so awesome. I love it.
I think it's great branding. I think that's what the real thing is. But to go back to your core question of how I reconcile
the creativity. Yeah.
I want to bring up this point because I wanted to point out that the majority of successful people that we all admire understand that most of them have not figured it out and have not reconciled it. Most of them are driven by fear and anxiety and neuroses, because if they don't the thing that they like doing, many of them, they've evolved. They've grown up. They were 20 when they started. They're 30 now. Or they were 30 when they started and they're 40 now. And they're stuck. They're stuck and they built a brand or a persona and identity, and they're trapped because it's what makes them their money. It's what they live off of. It's what they're known for. And if they ever pivot, they get punished in the algorithm, or they get punished by their audience. Oh, don't do this. Don't do that. And they're beholden to that because now their revenue is tied specifically to the whims and taste of their audience. And so what you have is the constant struggle that you hear from online creators is the fight to stay relevant. You've heard it before. Oh, am I irrelevant now? YouTubers are driven by the fear of what if I become irrelevant? They damage their brands and their reputation, sometimes doing outlandish things that were completely unnecessary but my views are down. I was getting 5 million a video and I'm getting 2 now. What the hell? I was getting 30,000 and now I'm getting 10. What the hell? And they are reactive to that instead of just saying, oh, that's cool. 10,000 people loved what I did today. And just accepting that that's where you are now, and that, maybe the magic is worn off and everything like that. And it's like the people who stay around are your real fans, are your real hardcore supporters, and so it's hard. But because I already knew that I'm already too emotionally selfish to be a professional photographer. And you know how much I love photography and I love camera gears, and it's where all my money goes. It's clearly not on clothing. It's just pretty awesome shirts and regular shirts. It's
it's clearly not on cricket pest control. Well, let's say that.
It's clearly not on that. It's gear. It's that's my thing. That's the thing. But my gear makes me money. So that's practical. But I'm too selfish to be told what to click and when to push this shutter button. And so when people ask me, Roberto, you talk about photography and you talk about cameras, but you're not even a professional photographer. I'm like, I'm not a professional photographer because I'm too selfish to be able to accommodate and serve clients. When I click that shutter button, I'm in service of one person and you're looking at them and they're like, okay, I understand. And they're like, and they respect that more. They go,
I get it.
Oh yeah. They're like, oh, I get it. It's cause I'm like, judge my photos and look at the bokeh, look at the sharpness, look at my composition. But it's but understand, I'm being selfish. I'm not trying to please you. I'm not trying to please anyone. When I push that shutter button, I'm only beholden to the guy behind the shutter, me. And I'm selfish like that. Right. Emotionally, artistically. So when you're a creator, most creators are doing stuff again from the expression standpoint of being artistic and being emotionally selfish and feeling the satisfaction of, I made this thing.
Yeah.
But when they start to get acknowledgement for it, the emotion shifts from I made this thing from I was rewarded for making this thing.
Oh, that's so good. That's
and
so
then it
perfect.
shifts to, okay, well, I got that attention and people love and support what I'm doing. When you start getting financially rewarded for it, now you're starting to shift, and it's like,
whole nother game.
I'll do this thing because it got me the most attention. And then it shifts to, I'll do this thing because it got me the most attention and money or money. And it becomes that. Or it's like, oh, well, I'm making enough money, but man, I want more attention. And it's a matter of then we all have ego. It's a matter of feeding the ego.
Right. And don't get it twisted, Nez Nation. And Roberto would confirm this. Money is important.
Money is absolutely important.
But there is a but.
But it's a great tool and it's a great servant and a terrible master.
Oh, I love that.
A great servant and it's a terrible master. It's like being beholden to money. It's like you make this, it's like every parable about, like, whenever you read, I love fantasy. It's like every parable of when someone's like, oh, I acquired this new power and it's great and it's helping me accomplish all my goals. But then you forget about the goals and you become a servant of just acquiring the power.
Right.
And the power becomes all consuming, becomes and it's because my thesis has always been, it's like, well, power only corrupts in proportion to a vessel that can't hold it.
Oh, I love this.
It's
Beautiful.
like if you're
great metaphor.
Right. So you're a vessel. It's like if you overflow, like an empty vessel is useless, but a vessel that's overflowing, or if it's cracked or if it's compromised. And not every vessel is suitable to hold everything. Something might be able to hold cold things very well, but not hot things. This is physics. This is practicality. So I feel like you have a capacity or a threshold for how much power, how much attention, how much money will not compromise your integrity. Just like a structure's integrity can be compromised by too much stress.
Right.
Power in its nature is stressful. It is a stressor. Yeah. To be a receptacle of power is to test the stress limits of what you can contain. And so
are people just ignoring that, Roberto? Are are they ignoring that? Like, because I love what you said. So because I remember when you did I can't remember if it was a stream or a video. If you are complaining that you have only 100 subscribers, I remember that video specifically, and you were talking about, imagine a room. It was a great sort of pictorial representation. You painted a vivid picture. Imagine a room filled with 50 people, filled with 100 people who are willing to give you their attention. How do you trust that? How did you, because I think, and Gord, I want to get to your question. Melissa, nobody will tell anybody, I promise. But Melissa says, I was 40 when I started. Shh, don't tell anybody. Naomi says, that's why I have a channel that has a variety rather than a niche. If I was niched, I know I would burn out fast. I would rather stay small and, great comment. Naomi is a great video creator. Than rely on one thing for my financial resource. That's why I have a full-time business. That's a practical thing. You get punished somewhat in the algorithm. There are ways, and I try to help people hack around that. There are things you can do, but it's that I don't let the fact that I know exactly what videos will perform and exactly which videos most of the time will underperform in my channel, and I do what I want. I do what I want because I don't rely on the YouTube ad revenue, and I'll tell your audience in full disclosure, it's like, because I've done enough live streams where I've let people peek at this. Because the thing is, it's not that you can't tell people how much you make in AdSense. It's that there's specific data in the dashboard that you can't reveal with regard to CPM and RPM rates, and it's confusing for most creators because they're not technical people, they're not Google people. No. Okay, so it's just easier to say, I can't show this panel that shows revenue, and I don't know what I can't show. And I'm not a technical or legalese person, so I just won't tell you. And it's easier to say I can't tell you than to say I don't know what I'm allowed to show. And it's just easier to show nothing and to say nothing. So that's where the narrative of YouTubers can't disclose their earnings came from. But here's the thing. They shouldn't have to, and it shouldn't be a validation of anything, and it doesn't really matter. But what I will tell your audience for perspective is, I know that what I make on ad revenue from YouTube is like around 3,000. And 2 months from now, this will be outdated because it'll be more. But like, it's like, okay, YouTube ad revenue, as long as I hit my average number of views every month, will be $3,000. Great. I live in the middle of nowhere. That's fantastic. I could probably just live off of that, right? And just not buy cameras anymore. And that would be the answer. Okay. But I diversified specifically
I diversified into multiple tiers of affiliate marketing because that was extremely practical, and it's not limited to YouTube. I do it on my podcast and on my other content as well. So I'm platform independent. I'm not beholden there. I do my consulting, which puts me completely independent of YouTube, and I can just leverage social media for attention to siphon for that. Public speaking pays. That's independent of YouTube. YouTube helps market it and scale. YouTube is me being on television for free to grow my brand.
There
I
it
have
is.
to make a little bit of money off of the advertisers who ultimately support the channel. I make some money when sponsors decide to promote and sponsor specific types of content. And whenever I do a product review, the affiliate marketing and support for me helping people make a qualified buying decision. The same thing happens when I do consulting. Is if I do consulting, I've had people call me up specifically to do consulting only around not YouTube, but around production and around gear and around workflow. And I make money off of those when people read articles where I do gear breakdowns and list. So I have those revenue streams independent of YouTube. YouTube scales them more, but I have other things, and building a podcast is another reason, and doing the blogs and doing the things and doing LinkedIn and so on. It goes on. So I made myself independent, and I have roughly 20 individual revenue streams. Some of them make a lot, some of them make a little. The merchandise makes very little, but I'm not promoting the merchandise as much. Once I get the swipe up in Instagram though, I'm turning
it's
that
on,
hose.
Baby. It's on.
On like Donkey Kong.
Yeah, exactly. And actually,
it's a matter of diversity. And so I'm not driven by fear of if I don't make it on YouTube, I go poor, because I'm like, no, I have Create Awesome Media. I have an actual media consultancy like that's predicated not on YouTube marketing, although that's what we lead with because it has the attention right now. But we emphasize that video marketing matters across all platforms, and that video marketing is all marketing, and it's your foundation content from which you can siphon written. You make a video, you can siphon that to a written list post and blog that. You do a video the right way, or you do a live show, you can siphon that and get an audio podcast, and then that has show notes attached to it, and so you've got written and audio out of that video content repurposed. Speaking engagements are the same thing. So we understand from Create Awesome Media's perspective, video is the lead content that you make. It's the top of the funnel for content, and you can chunk out every other type of content you need, whether it's still frames for Instagram, for micro content there, or Facebook, or videos that you can then push to another thing. And we prioritize YouTube only because it's the largest video platform. It's the largest content video platform. It has the engagement. We like that it has the Google metrics under the hood. We like that it has the Google search engine baked in and integrated. It's the second largest search engine, the second largest traffic website. That's why we lead with being a YouTube agency, but we're a video marketing agency that's platform independent, but YouTube has the attention, and right now it has the power. So we lead with our strongest punch. So I built a real business. Independently as a consultant, I'm valuable. Independently as a speaker, I'm valuable. So I built my personal brand and scaled my personal brand. I built a company that is the machine that I run my personal brand through, and then I replicate and sell that to other people. And then I commoditized my education the way that you're doing, and that like I'd love to work with you on. I commoditized my information in the sense that I built Awesome Creator Academy as a brand to do my mentoring group, paid webinars, and then also sell online courses, which are coming toward the end of the summer. So I decided to build that because that's scalable. That's all scalable, and it's YouTube independent. And I needed to make Awesome Creator Academy to parallel my free content because I needed to make content that educates people that's not dependent on what the YouTube algorithm decides to favor, because YouTube's algorithm still subconsciously influences the way that I format content and produce content and the rhythm and the pacing of the content. I needed to know what would I make, just like when I'm on stage. When I'm on stage, I don't think that much about the YouTube algorithm because I'm like, it's going to be hard enough for people to opt into an hour-long piece of content, no matter how good it is. I could literally tell them how to make $100,000 a year, and I still won't get people to opt into that content if it's an hour. Because that's how long it might take. And so I understand that, which means, well, if that's going to be suppressed in a system, I need a platform and a system where I'm in control 100%, like we talked about, real entrepreneurship, being in control. So the neuroses, the control freaking me. So I built off. And I still am sectioning off things. I have plans for an event that I'm going to probably try to start an event series next year. And I built an entire outline for basically marketing and producing my own event series so that I can control my public speaking career, and I can create opportunity for new up and coming speakers and create the kind of conference that my friends would want to come speak at.
Awesome.
Everything I do is born of this neuroses underlying of how much control I want. of a situation. I build something to give me control, because my entire life, the depression was based around feeling not in control of my life. And so when I say how do you balance the YouTube thing, if you want to balance, which most successful creators don't, you have to be independent of YouTube. You have to be independent of YouTube, which means you have to diversify your personal brand. You have to really build your personal brand. You have to be in control of it. You have to have ownership of your own thing, your own .com, your own website. You have to have also some kind of thing that you produce, a show, a podcast, something that is core content that's not just YouTube specific. You need to diversify your revenue streams. So it's all about this diversity, because it's like
students, are you hearing this? I hope my students out there,
one source of income, one source of income and one source of attention is just like having a chair with one leg.
Oh, this is so good, Roberto. You're on a roll.
So it's about stability. It's about stability. And remember, we talked about the physical and philosophical integrity of a thing.
Yeah.
That diversity means that you're not beholden. It means that if something from a practicality standpoint is disadvantageous in this platform, if you've diversified, you have permission to do something else in the context of that platform, as long as it's philosophically consistent, as long as it's who you are and it's authentic. Again, the content I do in Instagram is different than the content I do in YouTube, but it relates very much to the vlogs that I do in YouTube. I went variety in my channel, but I figured out that I don't have to niche down. All I have to do is reframe. For those who are worried about niche down, because this probably answers questions that we haven't gotten to, and I'm going to give you all the time you need for questions.
I love it. Love it.
The thing about niching down is that people go too narrow on niche and don't understand that you can create a niche that can pull and draw from established, understood, and known niches just fine and not suffer dramatically for it. The problem is framing devices. I was framing my YouTube channel wrong up until 2017, and I still got wild success like for what I do. Because remember, by the way, people who have a silver play button, that's only about 50,000 YouTubers. So 5 million people with 100 subscribers or more, really 6 million, but I'm rounding.
Right.
15 million overall. Only 50,000 have begun to make it on YouTube, silver play button holders.
What's the percentage of that? That's got to be less than like 2%. What is that?
It's less than, all right. So if we go from, that's why I go from the 5 million. So from 5 million, 50,000 people, that's like.
I'm a writing professor, not a math professor.
Yeah. Like I'm pretty sure that's
got to be less than 3%. Yeah.
Like from 5 million
to 50,000
to 50,000.
That's insane.
Like you're okay. That's the 1%.